Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Sideline Shenanigans podcast. Today with Jacob Maggardin
Daryl Hoppy Cantrell.
and having him back on again this week. Obviously, we just saw the draft. We saw all 3 days. We've seen the UDFA targets that every team has kind of went in and added, and there's still some interesting guys left out there that could be added to add to those teams and kind of help them out. Obviously, want to say first, if you guys don't mind liking the video, subscribing, keeping up with us, that's always super helpful for getting the channel out there. Leave a comment of any ideas that you guys have or anything you disagree or agree with us on. Those are also really, really helpful for us in the conversation that we're having about the draft. Of course, like I said before, one of the most fun times of the year for anybody that does film NFL content. This is a great time of year. And then we'll just go ahead and open it up and start talking about what did happen in the draft. Of course, if you've seen any of our mock drafts, we did 10 of them total. We actually nailed a pretty good amount of these picks. We got 28 out of the first 32 players in the first round correct. Now we got the exact location of the pick on 9 of them, and 8 is considered to be really good because once you get outside the top three, you're really starting to guess after that. And a lot of people say if you get anywhere between 8 to 10, that's a really good job. So we did all right for our first time through this whole process and open it up with number one, which was the number one we had. That's Cam Ward from Miami, the quarterback to lead the future of the Titans. A pick that I'll talk a little bit longer about because it is my favorite team. And I just think Cam Ward has all the potential to be a superstar. He has shown flashes of being that kind of guy, especially in his time at Miami, where he led one of the best offenses in the country, was awarded with being one of the best quarterbacks in the entire country. And again, in a year where the Heisman didn't go to a quarterback, he would have been the guy in most years where those Heisman quarterbacks are the guy. You know, we don't see production like Travis Hunter and Ashton Jeanty from the position players like we did this year. Cam Ward had a real case for the Heisman in other years. And so you see that kind of performance. You've also heard the story of the player and who he was, coming from literally nothing, going to Incarnate Word, which is, if you don't know, not an FBS school. So he was not participating in high-level college football for the first 2 years of his career. And it's very difficult to make it out of those levels into the next level and to even be as good as he was. Those guys don't do that very often. Of course, goes to Washington State after that, and then into Miami, where he become the kind of guy he is today. I love this pick for the Titans. I've said it before during our mocks. I'm going to say it again as he is now the Titans quarterback. He has the potential to change the franchise. You just have to have him set up right. I think the Titans have done a good job over the last 2 to 3 years of drafting offensive linemen and also signing some veteran free agents like a Tyler Lockett. Of course, we have Calvin Ridley, and it just gives him weapons as well as getting the UDFA and Xavier Restrepo, who was his best friend down there at Miami, making all those big time plays. So, of course, I've stuck on it forever because it is my team, but I love Cam Ward. I just think that he was a great pick here. Moving on to number two with the Jaguars. This was the big surprise to start the night. I mean, we pretty much got this immediately, and we don't see draft trades this early on unless they're kind of talked about beforehand. And it was mentioned that the Browns were shopping the pick. They made a trade, and the Jaguars come up and got Travis Hunter. And they traded a pretty good amount to get him, trading their future first round pick, multiple seconds, and I believe a third. But you come up and you get a generational prospect potentially, a guy that is probably going to play both sides and probably play him a lot. I assume he'll be more on the offense from what I'm hearing. But he was announced as wide receiver, defensive back. So they do plan on using him, of course, on both sides. If you heard what he said, I will retire if they don't play me on both sides of the ball. So expect to see Travis Hunter out there playing both sides. Kind of speed running through these next couple picks. Things that me and Hoppy were pretty much right on as well. We did mix up Abdul and Travis Hunter time and time again. Our final one, I think we had it flipped, but I was always kind of leaning towards the Hunter pick, and I think that either one of those guys was the next two players going to be picked in either order. Those two guys were going before anybody else. We get Abdul here at 3, can come in and change that edge rush for the Giants. We get Will Campbell here at 4 to come in and protect Drake May, very vital to that team. You got to keep the franchise quarterback up. Move on to number 5, Mason Graham. This is the other talking point from that Cleveland trade. There was a lot of rumors, again, that they would like to do this and build future because this team is not going to win football games next year with what they had at quarterback. Now, they did some interesting things down this draft that we may talk about a little bit later. But Mason Graham is a phenomenal defensive lineman. Me and Hoppy have both, during this whole process, had him easily as a top 5 player for us, and going inside the top 5 most of the time, going to Cleveland where he can be a game wrecker. And Hoppy, what do you think about those top 5 picks?
Well, those top five picks, they were what we thought they were going to be. I think Will Campbell was mock draft to New England 9 out of the 10 drafts we did, and that 10th one we did Mimbu just to switch it up. I did take Abdul Carter in our last mock, going to the second round pick, but I assumed it was going to be the Browns pick in there. And I just said that me personally, I do think Abdul Carter should have went second, regardless of the team. I think he was the better prospect there. I think an edge rusher is one of the most important positions you can get if you're going to win championships. But yeah, the first five picks, they were what we thought they would be. I think if it would have been any other five players, the order we weren't exactly right on, but the five players we had pinpointed down pretty well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Got the top five guys. I think that we both mentioned it during the process that those were the best players. There was really not a ton of superstars in this draft. There was more starters, not stars. And the starters are from here on out. Well, I will mention one more name in Ashton Jeanty being a superstar. At number six, I've been telling Hoppy the whole entire time this guy was going top six. There was no way in heck he fell outside the top six. There was tons of teams trying to trade up into the top six to get him. He is a difference maker. We have seen some teams draft running backs this high in the last 3 to 4 years, and it's worked out really well. I mean, Bijan Robinson has been a phenomenal player. Jahmyr Gibbs at 12, who was expected to be a reach, has been unbelievable. I mean, he's a top five running back in football. Even talking about a guy like Saquon, who didn't work out for a long time, the talent was always there. It just wasn't the situation in the team. We saw what he can do on a really good football team, rushing for over 2,000 yards. I think running back is that valuable, and it's coming back in the NFL. We've seen some teams have more success with the running back position in the last few years. Moving on, 7 through 10. Again, we nailed some of these picks. In our final mock draft, we had Armand Mimbu going number 7. Perfect pick there, again, to protect Justin Fields, who is right now the future quarterback for that team. Tedero McMillan, get an outside weapon so that Bryce Young doesn't have to just throw to nobody, or the old man and Adam Thielen. We nailed that one as well. Moving on to number 9 with Kelvin Banks, a guy that we had falling one spot lower to number 10, thinking the Saints may go on the defensive side. They grabbed their tackle to try to protect their quarterback, who we did see go in the second round in Tyler Shuck, which was obviously part of this big time quarterback saga that we saw. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit later on. And then last but not least in the top 10, we're talking about Colston Loveland, a guy that during our entire process we said can go this high. We just didn't think it was going to be the Bears. We thought it was potentially going to be a team like the Jets. You could even see Carolina do this. They needed weapons. And really, teams not named the Bears we thought would do this because they have a tight end in Cole Kmet who's a solid tight end. He isn't as talented as Colston Loveland, but it just wasn't a big time need. Hoppy, what do you think about those picks, 6 through 10?
Well, I'll start off with 10. And for years and years, we saw this trend of rookie tight ends can't be that good. And I think we've seen guys like Kyle Pitts, we've seen guys like Brock Bowers, and that has made teams want to take tight ends early, thinking, hey, we're going to get the next Brock Bowers. But it just didn't make much sense for me coming out of this Bears team to take a tight end this early. It just really didn't. Made more sense for me if they would have just targeted a defensive position here or even, an offensive lineman to help out Caleb. But things I did like 6 through 10 here is I like McMillan going to the Panthers. I think I had finally decided that it was a good idea for them to get Bryce Young some help in there. And then Mimbu, great pick. It's not going to excite many of the casual fans taking an O-lineman, but it's a really good pick. And then this Raiders offense with Genty is just going to be, I think, one of the teams to watch out for, really being one of the better offenses in the entire NFL outside of the lines. They got Genty, Brock Bowers, and a new quarterback coming in there to run things. And their receiving core is, not exciting, but they got some really good receivers. They got 2 or 3 good receivers. They don't have a star receiver outside the tight end, but I really like all these picks here outside of the Bears. That one didn't make much sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, the Raiders are a team that we could argue has been the most improved offense during the offseason. You're adding Ashton Jeanty, who is arguably could come in and immediately be a top 10 running back in the NFL. You're talking about Brock Bowers, who has already showed that he can be a top 5 tight end in the NFL, probably already is. And then you had Geno coming in, and that addition has just boosted that offense to another level. I mean, they don't have to worry about quarterback play because Geno has proven himself time and time again with a bad offensive line in Seattle. So, yes, those picks make a lot of sense besides 10. Moving on beyond that, to picks 11 through 20. Kind of speed running these a little bit more, not as, I guess, vital picks. Mykel Williams to the Niners. We said he could go this high. I don't think he should have went this high. I think there was better players to go there. It doesn't necessarily, it's not a bad pick, but I don't love the pick. Moving on to number 12 with Tyler Booker. Again, this is a guy we had mocked this high early on in our draft process. We had him going to the Dolphins because they needed guard help. It makes a lot of sense that they go out and address the guard position. To me, I just think they should have traded down and maybe tried to add more value to pick a guard this high. I don't necessarily love that pick when they could have added, weapons because I think that's what they really needed was to grab some weapons for that offense. 13, you get Kenneth Grant. I don't even think that the Dolphins necessarily needed to go defensive line, but the player is so good that I think it's a good pick. I think that he can be a difference maker on their defensive line, which of course has had some lapses since they lost some players in free agency. I think they should have added O lineman, but D lineman's great, especially the player he is. Tyler Warren, we nailed this probably all 10 mocks we had. This was the guy we said every single time makes the most sense for the Colts. Jalen Walker, we nailed this pick. I said he was going to drop. I think that 8 to the Panthers was where everybody had him going. I said I think he's dropping just a little bit, only because he's a smaller edge rusher. Those guys, they only look at size and stuff in the NFL. I mean, they really do. They look at their measurables, they look at their size, and the production really isn't as big of a deal as we saw with some players that ended up dropping in this draft. Um, Moved to 16, Walter Nolan. We were pretty dead set on they were going to go offensive line or defensive line, and we knew they were going to address one of the two positions. They go out and grab Walter Nolan, who has the most pass rush ability out of all the defensive linemen. Moving on to number 17, the Bengals take the highest upside edge rusher in this class, and Shamar Stewart. And again, production, none of it. Didn't do anything in college, but the measurables were unbelievable. The draft reflected that they love these kids that have awesome measurables and have the potential to be superstars. Going at number 17. Number 18, we nailed this one as well. Gray Zabel going to the Seahawks. I was very good on the late push with him. We've seen him, in a lot of our mocks, not in the first round because of the position value. But I think that the Seahawks, they said that they looked for trade partners to move back, and I think that they wanted to move back to get him because they don't think anybody else was going to take him. They ended up sticking and picking there, but I think that is a great pick for the Seahawks. Maybe talk about that a little bit later, how it's one of my favorite drafts. Number 19, Emeka Egbuka. This is a pick that just didn't make a lot of sense to me. The player is obviously very good. He's a captain, all-time leading receiver from Ohio State, which is an unbelievable statistic. There's been a lot of very good receivers go through there. But this is just a team that needed to address the edge rush position, and there was a lot left, or the linebacker position. I just don't necessarily love the pick at 19. And then number 20, Hoppy, your favorite team, which I assume you'll start with when I hand it over to you here. They draft Jahdae Barron. This is a player that we have had going inside our top 15 after his combine performance. He was the Thorpe Award winner, and it's a team that didn't necessarily need a corner. They have got a very, very good corner, arguably the best in football. So they didn't need to go out and address that position, but defense wins championships. That's been proven time and time again in football. And I think Jahdae Barron, he makes the defense a lot better. He has the ability to play the slot corner. He has the ability to drop back and play some safety if you want him to. And heck, with the speed he showed, maybe he plays some outside corner, opposite of Surtain. Again, great football player. Don't necessarily know if it was the most needy pick, but when you're talking about just BPA and best player available, he was it at number 20.
Yeah, I'll go back into what you're saying there with Jahdae Barron. I think the Broncos came into this draft wanting to take Omarion Hampton at pick number 20, and I think that it just got down to pick number 20, and they looked and they said, "What? Jahdae Barron is still available?" I think that they looked and they thought that he should have went, top 10 to top 15 pick, and they just snagged him. And I think he does a lot of the things that Surtain doesn't. And like you said, defense does win championships. We're going to get into talking about our teams, and I'm going to leave some of this for then. But I'll just go ahead and say I liked this pick for us. I thought it was a little bit risky, punting on a running back, kind of hoping that the guy that we would want would still be available in a later round. But I thought that this really was a good move for us defensively. Like I said, and like you mentioned, he can guard that slot receiver while Surtain's locking up the X receiver, and that's just going to really make offenses struggle even more against our defense, which was already one of the better ones in the league. A few other things I'd like to bring up here. I feel like one of these teams within these picks is going to regret not taking Josh Simmons, whether that be a guy like the Cardinals, who we projected would pick them so many times. Either way you look at it here, I like a lot of these picks. I really like Jalen Walker to the Falcons. I think that we might have even mocked that in our last mock draft. I think Shamar Stewart is a guy that is a steal at number 17. I think if Josh Simmons went 16 and Shamar went 17, it would have been, back-to-back steal picks for those two teams. But let me just stop talking about a pick that didn't happen here and move on to the actual draft. I'm happy for Colts fans that they got Tyler Warren. And then, as you said, the Dolphins kind of did a similar thing to the Broncos. They didn't pick positional need. They just went out there and they got that best player available. And I'm glad the Broncos did go out there and get Jahade Barron because our defense is what won us our last championship. Our Super Bowl we won with Peyton Manning. It wasn't because of our offense. It was because of strictly a great defense. So I'm happy with the pick we made in the first round. I would have been happy with Hampton as well, but that doesn't change the fact that I'm still happy with Barron.
Yeah, and moving on from there, last couple picks here, 21 through 32. These are obviously the teams that are already very good. These are the teams that made the playoffs and don't really have a ton of holes. But some of these teams did have big holes and they did address some things. Talking about pick number 21 with the Steelers. Quarterback could have been the pick here, but I'm okay with them straying away. I don't think there was another quarterback that was worth a first round pick, in my personal opinion. Derek Harmon goes here, and I think he was the best available defensive tackle left on the board. That is a big time need. This is a team that they pride themselves on how good their defense is every single year. They come out and they perform on defense. And it doesn't really matter how good their offense is because they make the playoffs every single year. I mean, they are always over 500. Their defense is always one of the best in the league. And they just like that. That's how they pride themselves. They go out and add additions that definitely makes their defense better. Amarion Hampton goes at number 22. I knew he was going to the first round. He's way too good. And if you've seen the picture of him meeting Harbaugh, this dude is massive. I mean, Amarion Hampton might be the largest human being I've seen since Derrick Henry running the football. He is a big guy. He's going to be a difference maker for a Chargers team that went out and signed Najee Harris. Najee, you might as well take a back seat, pal, because Amarion Hampton he's going to play. This guy is too good not to be on the field. He is a weapon that can definitely help this offense. And if you know how Harbaugh plays football, Amarion Hampton might be the perfect fit. Moving on to number 23, for the first time in over 18 to 20 years, I don't remember the exact statistic, they draft a first round receiver. The crowd went wild in Green Bay when they made this selection. I think everybody there was happy with the pick. I love the pick. I mean, again, I think Matthew Golden can be really good. I don't necessarily know if he's going to be the number one X receiver that they want him to be, but he has the potential to be that good. And they finally go out and add weapons for their quarterbacks, which they just don't do. And again, the crowd loved it. So you appeased your fan base at least. Moving on to 24, we said Donovan Jackson can go this high. I think in our last mock, we actually may have had him going in the first round. I think it was actually to the next pick, which got traded. But we believed in him going this high. He was unbelievable in college. He showed he can play left tackle. He was already one of the best left guards. A phenomenal pick for the Vikings. Now, again, is it maybe a reach because of where he was before? I don't know. But what he did in college football proved he's this good. Next pick here, the one that I don't love. I really don't. I don't think you needed to trade into the first round to pick a quarterback. I think that if you were going to trade into the first round to pick a quarterback, though, this might have been the best guy available. I don't necessarily think he's that much better than Shedeur Sanders. I don't think he's that much better than a Tyler Shuck. I was very high on him. But they do trade up into the first round. They get their guy. Jackson Dart was compared to Josh Allen by some of the reporters, and that's who Brian Daboll coached when he was in Buffalo. So maybe he can turn him into Josh Allen. I don't think that's happening. Again, I just don't think he has the ability. I think he will sit behind Russell Wilson for a year, and that can maybe help him develop a little bit as a player. Moving on to next pick. This is the most controversial trade of the entire draft. The Falcons come into the first round, and out of nowhere, they trade up to 26 and draft James Pierce. This is an unbelievable player. James Pierce Jr. is easily a top 15 talent. It's just the off the field stuff and him being a hard player to coach made him drop down the board during the process. That's been a constant rumor, and obviously the teams believed it as well because he wouldn't have fallen if they didn't. They trade a lot here. They trade a first round pick from next year. They traded their second round pick from this year. They traded more picks than that. I don't remember the exact draft comp. But trading a first round pick, this guy better be very good. If you're going to trade a pretty good second round pick and a first round pick, he's got to really produce for you. What team needed the edge rush the most in football? Probably the Falcons. Their defense was horrible, and they go out and they add James Pierce and Jalen Walker in the first round of the draft. I know people are criticizing them for making the trade. I love it. I really do. I think if you want to win football games, go get the players that can win you games. James Pierce is that kind of guy. I don't think you're getting that in the late first round next year. You're not getting a James Pierce Jr. So I'm very happy with that. I don't think it's necessarily the greatest trade ever because of what they traded to get him. But again, James Pierce is an unbelievable football player, and he was going to get picked by one of these next 4 or 5 teams. So you went up and you got him. Moving on to number 27. This is perfect. I mean, the Ravens every single year get a steal. Here's your free safety. He's going to play right beside who is arguably the best strong safety in football, in Kyle Hamilton. Malachi Starks is literally the best fit possible for the Ravens. Tyleik Williams. This to me is the worst pick of the first round. I think there was better defensive linemen available, and I just think the edge was more important. And there was some phenomenal edge rushers left on the board, not to mention Donovan Ezaraku, Mike Green, even with the off the field issues. And I don't love Tyleik Williams. I just don't. I think this to me was probably the worst pick of the first round. That or maybe Dart being a reach, but they needed a quarterback. I just don't like the pick. Moving on to number 29, Josh Connerly goes down to Washington to help out protect their quarterback. I think he can be very good. I mean, they went out and traded for Laramie Tunsil, so they got their left tackle. Now you're drafting your right tackle who can maybe play some guard or tackle. It can never hurt to upgrade your offensive line on a really good football team. Next pick, Maxwell Hairston, knocked it out of the park. Love this pick for the Buffalo Bills. You add a corner who can go out there and match up with Kansas City's best receiver next year and probably stick with him because he's got 4.2 speed. 31, this is unbelievable. I mean, we called this. How many times did we make this pick? The Eagles are drafting Jahad Campbell, and he shouldn't be here. Jahad Campbell is way too good to be the 31st pick in the draft. There's a couple scares with some injuries, and I think that may have scared teams off. There's also some question marks about whether he'll stick at the middle linebacker position or maybe play some edge and outside linebacker. But again, I love the player. Moving on to the last pick here, pick 32 with the Chiefs. And Hoppy will tell you right now, this is the biggest steal of the first round. This is a player that will change this Chiefs offense. He is going to come in and probably be the best offensive tackle they have on their team. I will say, the injury definitely scared teams. There's definitely some rumors that this injury may not be better and it may not come around before the season starts, and he may miss a lot of time. And if that's the case, this is why he fell to 32. But the player himself is easily a top three tackle in this draft. And he proved it time and time again at Ohio State on one of the best teams in the country. And again, Josh Simmons is a steal to the Kansas City Chiefs. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with, injury process. Does he come out for training camp? If he doesn't, is there question marks about what the Chiefs will do? Because their offensive line is pretty bad right now, and it's definitely an issue. If Josh Simmons can't play, maybe you wish you took a different lineman. But again, I think it's a great pick because of the level of talent of the player. Hoppy, what do you think about picks 21 through 32?
Well, I'll just start with 32, like you said I would, so I will. Josh Simmons, he's just a great player. I mean, if he misses even this whole first year, you're looking long term. I mean, I know you want to get production right away, especially some of these teams that need it right away. But I mean, 10 years down the road, when you're doing redrafts, you're not going to be drafting based on what these guys do as rookies. You look at picking an O lineman, I think that's one position where if they're injured and you think they can take a year off even and come back, I don't think that's going to hurt the Chiefs too bad. I think they'll find a way to make it work, especially with the great coaching and great quarterback play they have out there. Then you look at Jahad Campbell. You're right. We had him going to the Eagles a ton. I really like that pick. He fell way too far. Williams, like you said, the defensive tackle out of Ohio State. I didn't see that coming. I don't think we drafted him in the first round very often, and there are a few guys that are left on the board here that we did draft in the first round. So to say it's a bad pick, I can't really do that because I don't have a lot of information on this Williams guy. To say it was a surprising pick, I can definitely say I was surprised by that pick. You look at Malachi Starks, a guy out of Georgia. I had him in our very first mock going 20th to the Broncos. They ended up going with Barron to fill a similar role that Starks would have filled. And if you hadn't talked about it, I was going to. The Falcons grabbing James Pierce and Jalen Walker in the same draft. It looks to me like they're saying, okay, our offense is ready. Let's get our defense ready. It looks to me like they're trying to win this year based on that. And then I'll talk about Jackson Dart just a very little bit. I agree with you. I think if you trade up, I think you pick Shadur Sanders. I know that Sanders turned a lot of teams off with his overconfidence and a lot of the things he was doing. But for me, I don't. I'm like you. I don't think there was another quarterback that should have went in the first round. But if there was a quarterback that should have, I think Sanders made the most sense. But if the Giants like Dart, they like him and they picked him. And last thing I'll say is Matthew Golden going to the Packers. So many years of Aaron Rodgers begging them to take a receiver. They never would take one for him. But they finally get a receiver for Jordan Love instead of Aaron Rodgers. So they're showing that they have maybe more confidence in Love than they ever did Rodgers to begin with.
Yeah, I think some of the issue with the Rodgers era was they were always saying, well, if you're as good as you are, can you just win without us adding anything? We'll just keep adding to the defense. And they did constantly do that. I mean, it was literally every single year that they would take either a defensive player or an offensive lineman. And yeah, that helps him a little bit, but he doesn't have weapons. And there was always those issues. I mean, you watch the Packers play football and you're like, man, if they had an X receiver out there, that may be pretty daggone good because he makes some other receivers look pretty daggone good. But yeah, they do get Golden, and again, for the first time in like 20 years, they add a receiver, and it's pretty funny that that does happen for Jordan Love, who they did draft while they had Aaron Rodgers. So they even drafted his backup before they would ever draft a receiver for him. So it was always an interesting situation when he was there, and there was definitely some problems with coaches and whatnot. But some of the times, I think it was on the coach, like McCarthy. I just think it was completely clueless of him to never let Aaron Rodgers run the offense. Aaron Rodgers clearly was smart enough to do that. He won a championship doing that. And why would you not let him run the offense? So that was one of those situations where I think McCarthy may have been just drafting to go at him. You know, maybe he's like, well, if you want to run the offense so well, why don't you do it with what we got? So there was always that odd situation that occurred for a long time there. And again, Rodgers is one of the best quarterbacks to ever do it. But it is interesting to see them finally add talent and eventually when he's gone. And then, like you said, I like a lot of these picks. I do think that this could potentially be the last two picks of this draft could be the best two. And it's because Jahad Campbell and Josh Simmons are such good football players. And again, injury concerns scare some teams. But if those guys play, they're going to be difference makers for really good football teams. Thank you guys so much for joining us this week. We had a ton of fun filming this video and look for some more content coming out very soon. Going to be covering the Titans draft and also going to be covering the Broncos draft, of course, our two favorite teams. But we're also going to give you who we think are the five best drafts in the entire draft this season. And then we'll also probably give you like the two or three worst drafts, the teams that we just don't think nailed the draft. And obviously, we don't know what NFL GMs know, but on paper, I can tell you what I think. And my opinion at least means something to me. So it don't have to mean everything to somebody else, but I definitely think there were some drafts that I didn't necessarily love and some that I did. Hoppy, is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, just thanks for watching, y'all. Be on the lookout for more videos coming, more NFL videos, MLB videos. I don't know if Maggard's planning on covering basketball, but if you want to come over to my channel, I make basketball content as well every now and again. So just keep watching, man. It ain't like world beater content. If you comment down below, we're sure to comment back and talk with y'all. So go ahead and say anything you want to say down there.
Yeah, again, we love you guys. Like, again, comment on videos, leaving the likes, following along, subscribing. It definitely helps a ton. And again, I just thank you guys so much for watching this week. Leave a like and subscribe, and peace.
Peace.